My boss stole my prenatal vitamins. She didn't know I was pregnant with the CEO's baby. I stared at the empty drawer where my prenatal vitamins should have been, my hands trembling as I rifled through the scattered pens and sticky notes one more time. They were definitely gone. The bottle I'd hidden behind my emergency granola bars and spare phone charger had vanished sometime between yesterday evening and this Tuesday morning. Looking for something, Sarah? I jumped and spun around to find Monica Chin standing in my cubicle entrance, her arms crossed and that familiar smirk playing at her lips. My boss had perfected that expression over the 8 months I'd worked under her, equal parts condescending and cruel, like she knew exactly which buttons to push to make my life miserable. Just organizing, I managed, sliding the drawer closed with what I hoped looked like casual indifference. You know how it is. Monica's dark eyes glittered. Oh, I know exactly how it is. Especially when people think they can hide things at work. She leaned against my desk, her red manicured nails drumming against the wood. Personal things that don't belong in a professional environment. My heart hammered against my ribs. At 8 weeks pregnant, I wasn't showing yet, but the morning sickness had been brutal enough that I'd started keeping the vitamins in my desk instead of remembering to take them at home. Dr. Martinez had been very clear about consistency being key, especially since this was my first pregnancy. I'm not sure what you mean, I said carefully. Don't play dumb, Sarah. It doesn't suit you. Monica pushed off from my desk and smoothed her pencil skirt. Though I have to say, I'm disappointed. I thought you were smarter than this. The familiar knot of anxiety in my stomach tightened. Monica had made my life hell since day one, criticizing every report, scheduling me for weekend work that mysteriously disappeared from other assistants' plates, and finding reasons to dress me down in front of colleagues. I'd never understood why she'd singled me out until Jake started dropping subtle hints that Monica might see me as competition for advancement opportunities. What Monica didn't know, what nobody at Meridian Industries knew except Jake himself, was that I'd been secretly dating CEO Jake Harrison for 6 months. It had started innocently enough, working late on the quarterly reports, grabbing coffee to discuss presentation changes. Then came dinners that ran long, conversations that had nothing to do with spreadsheets, and eventually stolen kisses in his corner office after hours. We'd agreed to keep it quiet until we figured out where things were heading. Jake was 32, 8 years older than me, and inherited the company from his father 2 years ago. The last thing either of us needed was office gossip about the young assistant sleeping her way to the top. But now, staring at Monica's triumphant expression, I realized my carefully constructed secret was crumbling. She'd taken my vitamins, I was sure of it. The question was whether she'd figured out what they meant, or if she just enjoyed tormenting me enough to steal random items from my workspace. Monica, if you took something from my desk. I have no idea what you're talking about. Her voice was ice cold. But maybe you should be more careful about what you bring to work. Some things are better left at home, don't you think? She turned and walked toward her office, her heels clicking against the polished concrete floors. I watched her go, my hand instinctively moving to my still flat stomach, and made a decision that would change everything. It was time to tell Jake. The morning crawled by at an agonizing pace. Every time I glanced at the clock on my computer screen, it felt like only minutes had passed. Monica emerged from her office twice, both times walking past my desk with that same satisfied smirk, and I had to grip my pen so tightly my knuckles went white to keep from confronting her. By 11:30 a.m., I'd made up my mind. Jake had a lunch meeting with the board at 12:45, which meant I had a narrow window to catch him before his day became completely unavailable. I pulled up his calendar. One of the perks of being his executive assistant was having full access to his schedule, and saw he had 15 minutes blocked off at noon for prep time. Perfect. I spent the next 20 minutes rehearsing what I'd say. Asterisk Jake, we need to talk. It's important, asterisk too dramatic. I have something to tell you about us, too vague. I'm pregnant and Monica stole my vitamins too much, too fast. At 11:55, I knocked on his office door. Come in, came his familiar voice, warm and slightly distracted. Jake Harrison looked up from his laptop as I entered, his green eyes immediately softening when he saw me. Even after 6 months, that look still made my stomach flutter, though lately, I couldn't tell if it was butterflies or morning sickness. Sarah, hey. He glanced at his open door, then back at me with the careful neutrality we'd perfected. What can I do for you? Can you close the door? Please? His eyebrows rose slightly, but he got up and pushed the door shut. The moment the latch clicked, his entire demeanor changed. His shoulders relaxed, and he crossed the room toward me with that easy smile I'd fallen for. Everything okay? You look pale. I need to tell you something, I said, then immediately felt my courage falter. Actually, 2 things. Jake moved closer, concern creasing his forehead. What's wrong? First, I took a shaky breath. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air between us like a live wire. Jake's face went through a series of expressions, surprise, confusion, and something else I couldn't quite read. How long have you known? Since Friday. I'm about 8 weeks along. I twisted my hands together. I was going to tell you this weekend, but then something happened this morning that changed everything. What happened? His voice was quieter now, more careful. Monica took my prenatal vitamins from my desk drawer. She basically admitted to it without saying it outright, made some comment about personal things not belonging in a professional environment. The words tumbled out faster now. Jake, she's been making my life miserable for months, but this feels different. This feels like... Wait, slow down. Jake ran a hand through his dark hair, the same gesture he made during stressful board meetings. Monica Chin took vitamins from your desk? The prenatal ones I've been keeping there because I kept forgetting to take them at home. Dr. Martinez said consistency is crucial in the first trimester. I could hear my voice getting higher, more frantic. She knows something, Jake. Maybe not about us, but she knows something, and she's using it to mess with me. Jake was quiet for a long moment, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked downtown Seattle. When he finally turned back to me, his expression had hardened into something I'd only seen him use with difficult clients. How certain are you that she took them? Completely. They were there yesterday evening when I left, gone this morning, and she made those comments about hiding personal things. I stepped closer to him. Jake, what are we going to do? He checked his watch, 12:10 p.m. 35 minutes until his board meeting. We're going to handle this, he said firmly. But first, I need to ask, do you want to keep the baby? The question caught me off guard, even though I should have expected it. Yes. Absolutely yes. Something in his face relaxed. Good. Because so do I. Relief flooded through me so intensely that my knees almost buckled. Really? Really? Jake moved closer, his hand reaching out to touch my arm, then stopping himself. Even with the door closed, old habits died hard. Sarah, I've been in love with you for months. I was just waiting for the right time to figure out how to make this public without destroying your career. Well, Monica might have just solved that problem for us, I said with a bitter laugh. Jake's expression darkened again. Tell me exactly what she said to you this morning. Word for word. I recounted the entire conversation, watching his jaw tighten with each detail. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment, then walked to his desk and pulled out a small digital recorder. I need you to repeat all of that, he said. For documentation purposes. Jake, what are you thinking? I'm thinking that Monica Chin just made the biggest mistake of her career. He set the recorder between us. But I need everything on record before I do anything. Start from when you discovered the vitamins were missing. I went through the story again, more slowly this time, including details I'd forgotten, like how Monica had specifically emphasized the word hide and the way she'd touched my desk with those red nails. Jake's face grew stonier with each sentence. Done, he said, clicking off the recorder. Now, I need to ask you something else, and I want you to be completely honest. Has Monica ever done anything like this before? Taken your personal items? I thought about it. Not exactly taken things, but she's gone through my desk before. A few weeks ago, I caught her looking through my drawers when she thought I was at lunch. She said she was looking for the Henderson file, but I keep all client files in the shared cabinet system. What else? She schedules me for weekend work that doesn't exist. Makes me stay late for urgent projects that she never follows up on. Last month, she accused me of taking an extended lunch when I was actually in the bathroom being sick. I paused. Jake, I think the morning sickness has been worse because of the stress she puts me under. His hands clenched into fists. Has she done this to other assistants? That's the thing, she's only like this with me. Jenny and Marcus, the other assistants under her, they don't have these problems. She's actually nice to them. A horrible thought occurred to me. What if she knows about us? What if she's been targeting me because she figured it out? Jake checked his watch again, 12:18 p.m. I need to think about this strategically. Monica has seniority, tenure, and she's well liked by most of the department heads. If we're going to make a move, it has to be airtight. What kind of move? The kind that protects you and our baby. He looked at me seriously. Sarah, I want you to know that whatever happens next, your job is secure. You're not just my assistant anymore, you're the mother of my child and the woman I love. But if we do this, we're going public with everything. The relationship, the pregnancy, all of it. My heart hammered. I know. There's something else you should know, Jake said, his voice dropping. Monica applied for the regional director position that's opening up next quarter. It's a position that reports directly to me, and honestly, she was the front runner. Was? Theft of employee property and targeted harassment tend to disqualify candidates for executive positions. His green eyes were cold now, calculating. But I need more than just your word and missing vitamins. I need proof. A knock interrupted us. Mr. Harrison? Your 12:45 is here early, came his secretary's voice through the door. 5 minutes, Margaret, he called back, then turned to me. Can you do something for me this afternoon? Anything. Set up a meeting with Monica for 3 p.m. Tell her you want to discuss your quarterly performance review. Record everything on your phone. My stomach lurched. Jake, what if she? She won't be able to resist. Trust me. His expression softened slightly. And Sarah? After today, you'll never have to deal with her alone again. The afternoon felt like walking through quicksand. Every minute dragged as I tried to focus on routine tasks while my phone sat in my desk drawer, recording app ready to go. I'd practiced activating it dozens of times, 3 taps on the screen, swipe right, hit record. My hands needed to work automatically when the time came. At 2:47 p.m., I knocked on Monica's office door. Come in, she called, not looking up from her computer. Monica's office was immaculate as always, color-coordinated files, a single succulent on her desk, and framed photos of her recent vacation to Cabo. She'd made sure to mention the trip cost more than I made in 2 months. You wanted to discuss your performance review, she said, finally glancing up with that familiar cold smile. I sat down across from her, phone hidden in my palm, and managed to start the recording. I thought it might be good to go over any concerns before the formal review next week. Concerns. Monica leaned back in her chair. Well, since you asked. She opened a manila folder, my personnel file, and I caught sight of several handwritten notes clipped to the inside cover. My stomach dropped. She'd been documenting things. Let's start with punctuality. You've been arriving late several mornings recently. I haven't been late once in the past month, I said carefully. I have you marked down for 9:07 a.m. last Tuesday, 9:05 a.m. the Friday before. Her pen tapped against the desk. Shall I continue? Those were the mornings I barely made it to the bathroom in time before throwing up. I'd actually arrived early both days, just spent the first few minutes in the restroom dealing with morning sickness. I was here before 9 both days. Being in the building isn't the same as being at your desk, ready to work. Monica's voice carried that practiced authority she used in department meetings. Then there's the issue of personal phone calls during work hours. What personal calls? Last Thursday, 2:30 p.m. Approximately 15 minutes. She consulted her notes. You claimed it was work-related, but I could hear you discussing appointment scheduling. My doctor's appointment. I'd called to confirm my next prenatal visit, stepping into the supply closet for privacy. She must have been listening at the door. Monica, that was. And then there's your general attitude lately. Distracted, secretive. Her eyes glittered. Bringing inappropriate personal items to work. Here it was. My pulse hammered so hard I was sure she could hear it. I'm not sure what you mean by inappropriate personal items. Monica opened her desk drawer and pulled out my vitamin bottle. She set it on the desk between us with a small, satisfied thud. Prenatal vitamins, Sarah. In your workspace. She unscrewed the cap and shook out 2 of the large pills into her palm. Want to explain why my assistant is preparing for someone else's pregnancy on company time? The casual cruelty in her voice, the assumption that I was somehow managing my roommate's pregnancy as part of my job, made my hands shake with rage. Those are mine, I said quietly. Monica's expression shifted, surprise flickering across her features before settling back into smugness. Yours? Well, that's interesting. She dropped the vitamins back into the bottle. I suppose congratulations are in order. Though I do hope you understand this changes things significantly regarding your employment here. Changes things how? Pregnant women require accommodations. Time off. Special considerations. She leaned forward. Frankly, Sarah, I'm not sure this position is suitable for someone in your condition. Perhaps we should discuss a transition plan. My phone felt slippery in my sweating palm, but I kept recording. Are you suggesting I can't do my job because I'm pregnant? Monica's smile was razor sharp. I'm suggesting that your priorities have obviously shifted. And priority shifts tend to impact performance quality. She was digging her own grave with every word, but it didn't make sitting here any easier. I see, I managed. And I suppose you'll be recommending termination in my review? I'll be recommending what's best for the department, Monica said. Though between you and me, Sarah, you might want to start looking for something more appropriate to your situation. The words hit me like a physical blow. Monica wasn't just being her usual vindictive self, she was actively trying to force me out because of my pregnancy. The casual way she delivered the threat, like she was discussing weekend plans, made my blood run cold. Something more appropriate, I repeated, making sure my phone caught every syllable. Like what? Monica shrugged, spinning the vitamin bottle between her manicured fingers like a trophy. Retail, maybe. Food service. Jobs where unexpected absences and divided attention are more tolerable. I bit down hard on my tongue to keep from exploding. She was describing minimum wage positions, jobs that would barely cover rent, let alone prenatal care and eventually childcare. Jobs that would destroy any chance I had of building a career. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration, I said as evenly as possible. My performance reviews have been excellent. Your previous performance reviews were adequate, she corrected. But circumstances change. Priorities shift. She leaned back in her chair, clearly enjoying herself. Take today, for example. You've seemed distracted, unfocused. Already spending work time thinking about baby-related matters. I haven't. The vitamins were in your desk drawer, Sarah. During business hours. Monica's voice took on a lecturing tone. What's next? Doctor's appointments during important meetings? Morning sickness affecting your ability to handle client calls? Maternity leave right when we need you most? Each word felt deliberately chosen to build her case. I realized with growing horror that she'd probably been planning this conversation since the moment she found the vitamins. Maybe longer. You're discriminating against me because of my pregnancy, I said quietly. Monica laughed, a sharp sound that made my skin crawl. I'm protecting this department's productivity. There's a difference. She opened my personnel file again. Besides, your recent performance issues are well documented. The pregnancy just explains the pattern. What performance issues? Tardiness. Personal calls. Secretive behavior. She consulted her notes. Last week you left your desk for 23 minutes without explanation. I was delivering the Morrison contracts to legal, you sent me yourself. The trip to legal takes 8 minutes. Where were you for the other 15? I stared at her, realizing she'd been timing my movements. I stopped at the restroom. For 15 minutes? Monica raised an eyebrow. That seems excessive. The morning sickness had been particularly brutal that day. I barely made it to the bathroom before throwing up, then spent another 10 minutes sitting on the floor waiting for the nausea to pass. But explaining that felt like handing her more ammunition. Are you monitoring all the assistants this closely, or just me? Something flickered in Monica's eyes, annoyance that I'd asked the right question. I monitor my team as I see fit. That's not an answer. Monica closed the file with a snap. I think we're done here, Sarah. I'll make my recommendations clear in your formal review. She held up the vitamin bottle. I'll be keeping these, by the way. Personal items don't belong in company workspace. Those are my prescription vitamins. Vitamins aren't prescription medications. They're supplements. She dropped the bottle back into her desk drawer. Consider this a reminder about workplace policies. The theft was so blatant, so deliberately cruel, that for a moment I couldn't speak. She wasn't just taking my vitamins, she was taking something essential for my baby's health and development, something my doctor had specifically recommended, and treating it like contraband. Monica, those vitamins are important for fetal development. My doctor. Your doctor's recommendations aren't my responsibility, she cut me off. Your job performance is. I stopped the recording and slipped my phone back into my pocket, my hands shaking with rage and adrenaline. Monica had just handed me everything Jake needed, wrapped up in a neat bow of discriminatory threats and casual cruelty. I understand, I said, standing up. Thank you for clarifying your position. Monica's smile was triumphant. I'm glad we could have this conversation. It's always better when expectations are clear. I walked out of her office on unsteady legs, my heart hammering so hard I felt dizzy. The recording was damning, more than enough to destroy her career and probably trigger a company-wide investigation into her management practices. But as I sat back down at my desk, staring at the closed drawer where my vitamins should have been, I realized something that made my stomach drop. In 45 minutes, Jake would be furious enough to confront Monica immediately, and if he did that, she'd know the information had come from me. She'd know I'd recorded her. And Monica Chen didn't seem like the type of person who'd go down without a fight. My hands were still shaking when I reached my desk, the phone feeling impossibly heavy in my pocket. The recording was there, 37 minutes of Monica hanging herself with her own words, but sitting in the aftermath, I realized I might have just made everything worse. I stared at Jake's closed office door, knowing his board meeting would wrap up any minute. Margaret, his secretary, had left early for a dentist appointment, which meant the executive floor was nearly empty. Perfect timing for a private conversation, or a complete disaster if Monica decided to escalate things before I could get to Jake first. My computer pinged with a new email, and my blood turned to ice when I saw Monica's name in the sender field. Subject, performance discussion follow-up. Sarah. Asterisk per our conversation, I'll be scheduling a meeting with HR tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. to discuss your recent performance concerns and workspace policy violations. Please plan to attend asterisk. Asterisk, I've also taken the liberty of reviewing your access permissions. Effective immediately, your after-hours building access has been revoked as a security precaution. Any necessary overtime must be pre-approved and supervised asterisk. Best regards. Monica Chen. Department Manager. She'd sent copies to HR and Jake. My stomach plummeted as I realized what she was doing, getting her version on record first, making me look like a problem employee before I could reveal what she'd really said in her office. The after-hours access revocation was particularly cruel. Jake and I met in his office most evenings after the building cleared out. It was the only time we could be together without hiding, the only place we could plan our future without worrying about gossip or professional consequences. Monica had just severed that lifeline without knowing it. Or maybe she did know it. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, this is Dr. Martinez's office. Your 2 p.m. appointment tomorrow has been moved to 10 a.m. due to a scheduling conflict. Please confirm asterisk. Tomorrow. My first ultrasound appointment, the one where Jake and I would hear the baby's heartbeat for the first time. The appointment I'd been looking forward to for weeks was now scheduled right in the middle of Monica's HR ambush. I was still staring at the text when Jake's office door opened and voices spilled into the hallway. The board meeting was ending early. Quarterly projections look solid, but we need to address the turnover rate in middle management, came Jake's voice, followed by the deeper tones of Richard Blackwood, the company's COO. Monica Chen's department has been particularly problematic, Richard was saying. 3 assistant transfers in the past year, and now I'm hearing rumblings about workplace culture issues. My heart nearly stopped. They were talking about Monica, right here in the hallway, and I was close enough to hear every word. What kind of rumblings? Jake asked, and I could hear the carefully controlled interest in his voice. Exit interviews mentioned hostile management, unrealistic expectations, possible favoritism. Richard's voice dropped lower, but I could still make out the words. HR's been building a file, but you know how these things go. Hard to prove without concrete evidence. I see. Jake, I know Monica's been with the company for 5 years, but sometimes tenure isn't worth the liability. If she's creating a toxic environment, I'll look into it, Jake said firmly. Actually, I may have some new information that's relevant to this discussion. My pulse hammered. He was going to tell Richard about the recording, about Monica's pregnancy discrimination, maybe even about us. The conversation I'd been dreading for 6 months was about to happen whether I was ready or not. New information? Let me review a few things first. Can we schedule a follow-up for Thursday morning? Of course. But Jake, if there's a serious issue with Monica's management style, we need to act quickly. The last thing we need is a discrimination lawsuit or a harassment claim that could have been prevented. The irony was so sharp it was almost funny. Monica's theft and threats were about to trigger exactly the kind of investigation Richard was trying to avoid. I heard footsteps approaching and quickly turned back to my computer, pretending to work on a spreadsheet. Richard walked past with a brief nod, but Jake stopped at my desk. Sarah, could I see you in my office for a moment? His voice was perfectly professional, but I caught the slight tightness around his eyes that meant he was barely containing his anger. He'd probably read Monica's email already. I followed him into his office, closing the door behind me. The moment the latch clicked, Jake's careful composure cracked. Tell me you got everything, he said quietly. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands. 37 minutes. She kept my vitamins, threatened to fire me, suggested I find work in retail or food service, and sent an email to HR trying to make me look like a problem employee. Jake's jaw tightened as he listened to the key portions of the recording. When Monica's voice came through the speaker saying jobs where unexpected absences and divided attention are more tolerable, his hands clenched into fists. She's done, he said flatly. Sarah, I need you to forward me that HR email and send a copy of this recording to my personal phone. Then I want you to go home. Jake, she scheduled an HR meeting for tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. She did what? I showed him the email, watching his expression grow stonier with each line. And my doctor's appointment got moved to 10 a.m. The ultrasound appointment. Something shifted in Jake's face, a protective fury I'd never seen before. She's trying to force you into a corner. Make you choose between defending yourself and taking care of our baby. The way he said our baby made my chest tight with emotion. Even in the middle of this disaster, hearing him claim both me and our child so fiercely made me feel less alone. What do I do? Jake was quiet for a moment, staring out at the Seattle skyline as afternoon shadows stretched across his office. When he turned back to me, his expression was resolved. You're going to your doctor's appointment tomorrow. I'll handle Monica and HR. Jake. Sarah, trust me. By tomorrow afternoon, Monica Chen isn't going to be in any position to threaten anyone. That evening, Jake insisted on driving me home, something we'd never risked before in broad daylight. But as we sat in his black BMW outside my apartment building, the familiar rules of our secret relationship felt insignificant compared to everything that had happened. I keep thinking about what she said, I admitted, my hand resting on my stomach. About me not being suitable for the position because I'm pregnant. Jake, what if she's right? What if I can't handle everything once the baby comes? Jake reached over and covered my hand with his. Monica Chen doesn't get to decide what you're capable of. And neither does anyone else. His green eyes were fierce in the fading light. Sarah, I've watched you manage my impossible schedule, handle crisis after crisis, and somehow make everything look effortless. You think that's going to change because you're having a baby? Everything's going to change. Yeah, it is. But not the things that matter. He squeezed my fingers. Tomorrow, I want you to go to Dr. Martinez's office at 10 a.m. Don't worry about Monica's HR meeting, don't worry about work, don't worry about anything except seeing our baby for the first time. I wanted to believe him, but the practical part of my brain wouldn't stop spinning worst-case scenarios. What if HR believes her version? What if the recording isn't enough? Then we'll deal with it. Together. Jake glanced at the dashboard clock, 7:23 p.m. But Sarah, there's something else you should know. That conversation I had with Richard today? Monica's been on HR's radar for months. 3 assistants have transferred out of her department since January, and at least 2 of them mentioned hostile management in their exit interviews. This was news to me. 3 assistants? Jennifer Walsh, Marcus Torres, and Amy Chen, no relation to Monica. Jake's expression darkened. Amy specifically mentioned that Monica seemed to target younger female employees. Made comments about their appearance, their dedication, whether they were serious about their careers. My stomach churned. So I wasn't imagining it. She really has been singling me out. Worse than that. I think she's been building a pattern of discrimination that's going to destroy her career. Jake turned to face me fully. Sarah, when I play that recording for HR tomorrow, it's not going to be an isolated incident. It's going to be the final piece of evidence they need to terminate her immediately. The vindictive part of me felt satisfied by that prospect, but another part, the part that was still terrified of losing everything, couldn't quite believe it would be that simple. What about us? I asked quietly. Once this comes out, everyone's going to know about the pregnancy, about our relationship. What if people think I was getting special treatment? What if they think the only reason I got the assistant position was because I was sleeping with you? Jake was quiet for a long moment. Do you think that's why you got the job? No. The answer came immediately, without hesitation. I earned that position. Then that's all that matters. He lifted our joined hands and pressed them against his lips. Sarah, I don't care what people think about us. I care about you and our baby being safe and protected. Everything else is just noise. A text notification buzzed on my phone. My heart sank when I saw Monica's name again. Asterisk Sarah, I forgot to mention, please bring any company property currently in your possession to tomorrow's HR meeting. This includes files, keys, and any materials you may have taken home for after-hours work. We'll need to conduct a full audit, asterisk. Jake read the message over my shoulder, and I felt his entire body tense. She's not going to stop, I whispered. Even after everything that happened today, she's still trying to make me look like I've done something wrong. Good, Jake said grimly. Let her keep digging. Every text, every email, every petty power play is just more evidence of harassment. He started the car engine. Go upstairs, get some rest, and take care of yourself and our baby. Tomorrow, Monica Chen is going to learn what happens when you mess with my family. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Monica's voice saying jobs where unexpected absences and divided attention are more tolerable, and I jolt awake with my heart racing. At 3:17 a.m., I gave up and made chamomile tea, sitting at my kitchen table scrolling through pregnancy forums on my phone, trying to calm my nerves. The morning sickness hit harder than usual when I woke up at 6:30 a.m. I spent 20 minutes on my bathroom floor, wondering if the stress was making everything worse. Dr. Martinez had warned me that anxiety could amplify first trimester symptoms, and yesterday had certainly qualified as anxiety-inducing. By 8:45 a.m., I was dressed in my most professional outfit, navy blazer, white blouse, my lucky pearl earrings, and trying to decide whether to show up at the office or go straight to my doctor's appointment. Jake had told me not to worry about Monica's HR meeting, but the responsible part of my brain kept insisting I should at least make an appearance. My phone rang as I was grabbing my purse. Jake's name lit up the screen. How are you feeling? He asked without preamble. Like I'm about to throw up, and I'm not sure if it's morning sickness or nerves. Both, probably. His voice was gentler than usual, the tone he used when we were alone in his office after hours. Sarah, I need to tell you something. Monica called in sick today. I stopped halfway to my door. What? Margaret got the call at 7:30 this morning. Monica claimed she has food poisoning and won't be in until Thursday at the earliest. Jake's voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. Which means her HR meeting is automatically cancelled. Relief flooded through me so intensely that I had to sit down on my couch. She's running scared. Exactly. And Sarah, there's more. I did some digging last night after I dropped you off. Monica's been accessing your computer logs remotely. My blood ran cold. What does that mean? It means she's been monitoring your email activity, your internet usage, even your file access patterns. All without authorization from IT or HR. Jake's voice was tight with controlled anger. She's been building a surveillance case against you for weeks, maybe months. The violation felt personal and terrifying. Jake, what if she saw? Did we ever email about personal things? About us? I checked. We've been careful, everything between us has been verbal or text to personal phones. He paused. But Sarah, she would have seen you researching pregnancy symptoms, prenatal care, probably the appointment confirmations from Dr. Martinez's office. My hands were shaking again. Monica hadn't just stumbled onto my pregnancy, she'd been actively investigating my personal life, building a case against me piece by piece. The vitamins in my desk had just been the final confirmation of what she'd already suspected. This is so much worse than I thought, I whispered. Actually, it's so much better, Jake said firmly. Unauthorized surveillance of employee computer activity is a termination offense. Combined with yesterday's recording, Monica doesn't just lose her job, she's looking at potential legal liability. I heard voices in the background on Jake's end of the call. I have to go, he said. Richard Blackwood just arrived, and we're meeting with HR at 9:30 a.m., right when Monica was supposed to ambush you. The irony is perfect. Jake, wait. What should I do about work today? Go to your appointment. Hear our baby's heartbeat. Let me handle everything else. His voice softened. Sarah, by the time you get back from Dr. Martinez's office, Monica Chen won't be able to hurt you anymore. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment for another 10 minutes, trying to process everything. Monica's sick day wasn't a coincidence, she knew something was wrong, probably sensed that her harassment had finally gone too far. But her computer surveillance was the detail that made my skin crawl. How long had she been watching me? What else had she seen? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, hope your appointment goes well today. Some people should be more careful about their browser history. Asterisk. The text message made my blood turn to ice. Monica knew about my doctor's appointment. She'd been monitoring everything. My hand shook as I screenshot the message and immediately forwarded it to Jake. He called back within 30 seconds. Sarah, where are you right now? Still at home. Jake, she's been watching everything. My browser history, my emails. Listen to me carefully. Do not go to the office today. Go straight to Dr. Martinez's office and stay there until I call you. His voice carried an edge I'd never heard before. That text message was a mistake on her part. She just admitted to unauthorized surveillance in writing. But what if she can't do anything to you anymore? Sarah, I'm forwarding this to our head of security right now. What Monica just did could qualify as cyberstalking. After hanging up, I sat in my car outside Dr. Martinez's office, trying to steady my breathing. The morning had taken on a surreal quality. In 20 minutes, I'd see my baby for the first time, while simultaneously watching my boss's career implode via text message. Dr. Martinez's waiting room was decorated in soft pastels, filled with pregnant women in various stages. I checked in at 9:47 a.m., my hand still trembling slightly as I filled out the updated paperwork. First ultrasound? Asked the woman sitting next to me, her own belly showing she was well into her second trimester. Yes. 8 weeks. Oh, how exciting. Is your partner coming? I glanced toward the door, hoping irrationally that Jake might walk through it. He's dealing with a work crisis. She smiled sympathetically. They always seem to happen at the worst times, don't they? At exactly 10:15 a.m., a nurse called my name. As I followed her down the hallway, my phone buzzed with another message, this time from Jake. Asterisk, Monica's employment has been terminated effective immediately. Security is escorting her from the building. You're safe, asterisk. The relief was so overwhelming that I had to stop walking for a moment. The nurse noticed and touched my arm gently. Everything okay, honey? Yes, I managed. Everything's perfect now. Dr. Martinez greeted me with the same warm smile she'd had during my first appointment. How are we feeling today, Sarah? Any changes since last week? The morning sickness has been worse, but I think it's been stress-related. Well, let's take a look at this baby and see how everything's developing. The ultrasound gel was cold against my still flat stomach. Dr. Martinez moved the wand slowly, her eyes focused on the monitor beside the examination table. For a moment, there was only static and shadows. Then suddenly, there it was, a tiny, flickering movement on the screen. There's your baby, Dr. Martinez said softly. And that flickering you see is the heartbeat. I stared at the grainy black and white image, tears blurring my vision. The baby looked impossibly small, like a tiny being with the most beautiful heartbeat I'd ever seen. The heart rate is 157 beats per minute, which is exactly where we want it to be at 8 weeks, Dr. Martinez continued, taking measurements. Growth looks perfect. Due date is still tracking for late March. Can you print pictures? Of course. She smiled, adjusting the ultrasound wand to get a better angle. This is always my favorite part of the job, first-time parents seeing their babies. As she printed the ultrasound photos, my phone rang. Jake's name appeared on the screen, and Dr. Martinez nodded permission for me to answer. How did it go? He asked immediately. Perfect. Jake, the baby has a heartbeat. 157 beats per minute. The silence on his end lasted so long I wondered if the call had dropped. Jake? I'm here. His voice sounded thick with emotion. Sarah, I wish I could have been there. You will be next time. What happened with Monica? She's gone. Terminated for cause, escorted out by security, and HR is considering whether to file criminal charges for the computer surveillance. Criminal charges? I gripped the phone tighter, still staring at the ultrasound photos Dr. Martinez had handed me. Jake, what exactly did you find out about the computer surveillance? More than we initially thought. IT pulled the access logs. Monica's been remotely monitoring your computer activity since February. Your emails, browser history, even keystroke logging on certain documents. His voice was grim. She accessed your personal information over 200 times in the past 3 months. The number hit me like a physical blow. 200 times. Monica hadn't just been a vindictive boss, she'd been systematically stalking my digital life for months. But there's something else, Jake continued. When security went to escort her out this morning, they found your prenatal vitamins in her purse along with a printed copy of your browser history from last week. She was planning something bigger than just the HR meeting. Dr. Martinez had been politely pretending not to listen, but I caught her concerned expression as she cleaned the ultrasound equipment. I managed to thank her and schedule my 12-week appointment before stepping into the hallway to continue the conversation. What kind of something bigger? We're not entirely sure yet, but Richard thinks she might have been building a case to report you to the state licensing board for some kind of professional misconduct. She had a folder labeled employee ethics violations with your name on it. My legs felt unsteady. I found a chair in the hallway and sat down hard. Jake, I haven't violated any ethics rules. I've been careful about our relationship. I've never used my position inappropriately. I know that. But Monica was creating a narrative. Fake evidence, manipulated timeline records, even photoshopped screenshots of emails that don't exist. His anger was palpable even through the phone. Sarah, she was trying to destroy your entire career, not just get you fired. The maliciousness of it was breathtaking. This wasn't workplace bullying or even discrimination. It was a calculated attempt to make sure I could never work in business again. Why? I whispered. Jake, why would she go this far? We found that out too. Jake's voice dropped. Monica applied for an executive assistant position in my office last year. Before you were hired. HR rejected her application because of complaints about her management style. The pieces clicked into place with horrible clarity. Monica hadn't just seen me as competition, she'd seen me as someone who got the job she wanted, the position that would have put her directly under Jake's supervision. Every cruel comment, every impossible task, every humiliation had been revenge for a perceived theft of her opportunity. She's been planning this since I was hired, I said, the reality settling over me like ice water. Everything, the computer surveillance, the documentation, the vitamin theft, it was all building toward destroying me. Exactly. But Sarah, there's more. IT found evidence that she's done this before. What do you mean? Remember Amy Chan, one of the assistants who transferred out of her department? Monica had been monitoring her computer too. Same pattern, months of surveillance, building fake evidence, trying to manufacture ethics violations. Jake's voice was tight with controlled fury. Amy left before Monica could execute whatever she was planning, but the IT logs show identical behavior. I closed my eyes, feeling sick. How many others? We're investigating. But Sarah, this is why criminal charges are on the table. What Monica did isn't just workplace harassment, it's cyberstalking, possibly identity theft, and definitely fraud for the fake documentation. The hallway suddenly felt too bright, too crowded with other patients walking past. I stood up on shaky legs and walked toward the exit, needing fresh air. Jake, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Anything. If I hadn't been dating you, if I was just another assistant, would Monica have gotten away with this? The pause on his end told me everything I needed to know. Probably, he admitted quietly. Sarah, the only reason we caught her is because you trusted me enough to tell me what was happening. Most employees wouldn't have had that access. The unfairness of it hit me like a slap. How many other people had Monica destroyed? How many careers had she ended with her manufactured evidence and systematic harassment? What happens now? Now we make sure she never has the opportunity to do this to anyone else again. 2 days later, I was back at my desk trying to pretend everything was normal when Margaret approached with a grim expression. Jake had been in back-to-back meetings since Monica's termination, dealing with what he'd called the fallout, but I was starting to realize the situation was far more complicated than anyone had anticipated. Sarah, honey, you have a visitor, Margaret said quietly. There's a woman from the State Employment Commission here to see you. Conference room B. My stomach dropped. The Employment Commission? She says it's about a complaint that was filed regarding your conduct. Margaret's voice was carefully neutral, but I caught the concern in her eyes. Jake's in his meeting with the board, but I can try to interrupt. No, it's okay. My hands were already shaking. Did she say what kind of complaint? Something about misuse of company resources and inappropriate relationships with supervisors. Margaret lowered her voice. Sarah, she had a thick folder with your name on it. Monica. Even from whatever hole she'd crawled into after her termination, she was still trying to destroy me. The folder of fake evidence Jake had mentioned, she must have filed it with the state before security escorted her out. I walked to conference room B on unsteady legs, my hand instinctively moving to my stomach. At 9 weeks pregnant, I still wasn't showing, but the protective gesture was becoming automatic whenever I felt threatened. The woman waiting for me looked like she'd stepped out of a bureaucratic nightmare, steel gray hair, wire-rimmed glasses, and a suit that suggested she took no prisoners. Her briefcase sat open on the table, revealing neatly organized files and what looked like printed screenshots. Miss Collins? I'm Patricia Hoffman from the Washington State Employment Standards Division. Her handshake was firm and cold. Thank you for meeting with me on short notice. Of course. I sat across from her, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. Though I'm not sure why the Employment Commission would need to speak with me. Ms. Hoffman consulted a legal pad covered in handwritten notes. We received a formal complaint on Tuesday alleging that you've been engaged in quid pro quo sexual harassment, misuse of company computer systems, and theft of proprietary information. Each accusation hit like a physical blow. That's completely false. Who filed this complaint? I'm not at liberty to reveal the complainant's identity at this stage. Ms. Hoffman opened one of her files. However, I can tell you that the complaint includes what appears to be substantial documentation. Email records, computer access logs, even photographic evidence of policy violations. She slid a printed screenshot across the table. It showed what looked like my computer screen with Jake's personal calendar open, but the image had been manipulated. There were fictional entries like private dinner, Sarah, and evening meeting, personal, that had never existed. This isn't real, I said immediately. These calendar entries are fabricated. The complainant alleges that you've been using your position as executive assistant to arrange personal meetings with CEO Jake Harrison, and that your recent promotion was contingent on maintaining an inappropriate relationship. What recent promotion? My voice was getting higher despite my efforts to stay calm. I haven't received any promotion. Ms. Hoffman flipped through her papers. According to the documentation provided, you received a salary increase of 15% in January and were given expanded access to executive systems. I stared at her in confusion. The salary increase was part of the annual review cycle. Every assistant received the same percentage raise based on performance metrics. Can you provide documentation of that? Of course, but I stopped, realizing the trap Monica had laid. This complaint was filed by Monica Chen, wasn't it? Ms. Hoffman's expression didn't change. I cannot confirm the complainant's identity. Monica Chen was terminated on Tuesday for harassment and unauthorized surveillance of employee computer systems. She's been systematically targeting me for months, and now she's filing false complaints as retaliation. Are you alleging that this complaint is fraudulent? I'm stating as fact that these documents have been manipulated and these allegations are false. I leaned forward. Ms. Hoffman, has your office verified any of this evidence independently? Something flickered in her eyes, annoyance that I'd asked the right question. Our investigation is ongoing. My phone buzzed with a text. I glanced down and saw Jake's name, asterisk in conference room C with legal team. Don't answer any questions without attorney present asterisk. Too late for that advice, but it confirmed my growing suspicion that this meeting was more serious than Ms. Hoffman had initially indicated. Ms. Hoffman, am I required to continue this conversation without legal representation? Her lips tightened. You're not under arrest, Ms. Collins. This is simply a fact-finding interview. Then I think we're done here. I stood up, my legs steadier than I'd expected. If you need additional information, please contact our HR department or have your office submit a formal request through proper channels. Ms. Collins, I should warn you that non-cooperation with the state investigation can result in additional penalties. I turned back to face her. And filing false complaints with state agencies can result in criminal charges for fraud. I suggest your office verify the authenticity of those documents before proceeding further. As I walked out of the conference room, my hands were shaking with adrenaline, but for the first time in days, I felt like I'd won a round. Monica's web of lies was about to collapse under scrutiny, and I finally had the chance to fight back. 3 hours later, I was sitting in Jake's office with our company's lead attorney, Rebecca Martinez, no relation to my doctor, watching her face grow increasingly grim as she reviewed the state complaint documents. "This is sophisticated," she said, adjusting her reading glasses. "Whoever created these fake screenshots knew enough about our internal systems to make them look authentic at first glance." Jake paced behind his desk, his jaw tight with controlled anger. "How sophisticated are we talking?" "Professional level. The metadata has been scrubbed, the fonts match our actual email system, even the timestamp formatting is correct." Rebecca held up one of the fabricated calendar screenshots. "But there are inconsistencies. This supposed meeting on March 15th shows as being in conference room A, but our booking system shows that room was under construction that entire week." I felt a spark of hope. "So you can prove they're fake?" "With a proper forensic analysis, absolutely. But Sarah, there's something else we need to discuss." Rebecca's expression grew more serious. "The complaint also alleges that you've been accessing confidential board documents without authorization. That's a potential felony under state corporate espionage laws." My blood turned cold. "What board documents?" "I've never accessed anything I wasn't supposed to. According to this complaint, someone using your login credentials accessed sealed merger documents from the Blackstone acquisition last month." Rebecca showed me a printed access log. The timestamp shows 11:47 p.m. on a Wednesday night. I stared at the document, my mind racing. I wasn't even in the building that night. I was home with food poisoning, I remember, because I had to call in sick the next morning. Jake stopped pacing. "Sarah, do you still have the doctor's note from that sick day?" "I think so. It should be in my personnel file." Rebecca made a note. "We'll need that. But there's more. The complaint alleges that you've been sharing confidential information about board decisions with an outside party. Someone named David Chin." The name hit me like a physical blow. David Chin is Monica's brother. He works for Hartwell and Associates. "Our primary competitor," Jake said grimly. "Sarah, if Monica was using your login to access confidential documents and then passing that information to her brother, that's corporate espionage," Rebecca finished. "And they're trying to frame you for it." I felt like the walls were closing in. "How is this possible? How could she use my login credentials?" "The keystroke logging software she installed on your computer," Jake said. "She would have captured every password you typed, every system you accessed. She could have been impersonating you digitally for months." Rebecca gathered the documents into a neat pile. "Here's what we're dealing with. Monica Chen has filed a complaint alleging that Sarah engaged in sexual harassment, misuse of company resources, and theft of proprietary information. But the evidence suggests that Monica herself committed the actual crimes, unauthorized surveillance, identity theft, and corporate espionage, and is now trying to frame Sarah for her own actions." "Can we prove that?" I asked. "Yes, but it's going to take time. We need a full forensic audit of both your computer and Monica's, analysis of the fabricated documents, and a complete review of who had access to what information when." Rebecca closed her briefcase. "The good news is that Monica made mistakes. The bad news is that the state investigation is already underway, and these kinds of accusations can destroy careers even when they're proven false." Jake's hands were clenched into fists. "How long will the forensic analysis take?" 2 to 3 weeks, minimum. Maybe longer if the state agency requests an independent review." "And in the meantime?" Rebecca's expression was grim. "In the meantime, Sarah is effectively under investigation for corporate espionage. That means restricted access to sensitive systems, possible suspension pending the outcome, and depending on how aggressive the state wants to be, potential criminal charges." The room felt like it was spinning. "Criminal charges? For something I didn't do?" "Sarah, the merger documents that were allegedly accessed contain information that could be worth millions to our competitors. If the state believes you stole and shared that information, they'll prosecute to the full extent of the law." Rebecca's voice was gentle but firm. "We're talking about potential prison time." I couldn't breathe. At 9 weeks pregnant, facing possible criminal charges for crimes I didn't commit, with my career and future hanging by a thread, Monica's final revenge was more devastating than anything I could have imagined. Jake moved to my chair and knelt beside it, his hand covering mine. "We're going to fight this. Every accusation, every fake document, every lie, we're going to expose all of it." But as I stared at the pile of fabricated evidence on Rebecca's desk, I realized that proving my innocence might not be enough to save me. The forensic analysis results came back on a Thursday morning, 2 weeks and 3 days after Rebecca had promised 2 to 3 weeks, minimum. I'd been surviving on crackers and ginger tea, the stress making my morning sickness so severe that I'd lost 4 pounds instead of gaining them. Dr. Martinez had started me on anti-nausea medication and threatened bed rest if I didn't stabilize soon. Jake knocked on my apartment door at 7:23 a.m., holding 2 coffee cups and looking like he hadn't slept in days. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his tie slightly crooked, details that would have been imperceptible to anyone else but felt monumental to me. "Rebecca wants to meet at 8:30, he said, handing me what turned out to be chamomile tea instead of coffee. "She has the preliminary forensic report." I wrapped my hands around the warm cup, grateful for something to steady them. "Preliminary?" I thought this was supposed to be the final analysis. "The computer forensics are complete." "But Sarah." Jake's expression was carefully controlled, which usually meant bad news. "The state investigation expanded. They're now looking into irregularities in 3 other companies where Monica previously worked." My stomach dropped. 3 other companies? Hartwell and Associates, where her brother David works. Morrison Financial Group, where she was employed from 2019 to 2021. And Pinnacle Consulting, her job before that. Jake sat on my couch, running a hand through his already messy hair. "Rebecca thinks Monica's been running the same scheme for years. Infiltrate a company, identify valuable information, manufacture evidence against innocent employees, then use the chaos to extract what she needs for her brother's firm." The scope of it was staggering. "How many people has she done this to?" "We don't know yet. But Sarah, there's something else. Jake's voice dropped lower. The state found David Chen's bank records. He received a wire transfer for $47,000 from an offshore account the day after those merger documents were allegedly accessed. $47,000. The number hung in the air like a physical weight. Jake, please tell me that money didn't come from anywhere connected to me. It didn't. But the timing is suspicious enough that the state attorney general's office is getting involved. This isn't just corporate espionage anymore, it's organized fraud, possibly racketeering. I set down my teacup before my shaking hands could drop it. What does that mean for me? It means you're no longer just a suspect, you're potentially a victim and a key witness. Jake moved closer on the couch. But it also means this case is going to take months to resolve, not weeks. The implications hit me all at once. Months of investigation while I was pregnant. Months of restricted work duties, suspicious looks from colleagues, and the constant stress of waiting for the other shoe to drop. By the time this was resolved, I'd be showing, dealing with second trimester complications, and trying to prepare for a baby while my professional reputation hung in limbo. I can't do this for months, I whispered. Jake, the stress is already affecting the pregnancy. Dr. Martinez said. I know. Jake's hand found mine, his thumb tracing circles across my knuckles. Which is why I made a decision yesterday that I should have made weeks ago. Something in his tone made me look up sharply. What kind of decision? I'm going public with everything. Our relationship, the pregnancy, Monica's harassment, all of it. His green eyes were steady and determined. Today. At the 9 a.m. staff meeting. The blood drained from my face. Jake, no. If you do that now, while I'm under investigation, it'll look like you're trying to protect me because we're involved. It'll make everything worse. Or it'll make it clear that Monica targeted you specifically because of our relationship, which supports the harassment angle. Jake's jaw was set in the stubborn line I recognized from difficult board meetings. Sarah, I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of letting other people control our narrative. But the timing is perfect. Rebecca has forensic evidence proving Monica created those fake documents. The state has David Chen's suspicious bank records. And I have 2 weeks worth of documentation showing how this stress is affecting your health and our baby. Jake stood up, straightening his tie. I'm not letting Monica destroy our family from whatever hole she's hiding in. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca, * emergency development. Monica Chen arrested at SeaTac Airport this morning attempting to board flight to Singapore. Need to meet immediately, *. Jake read the message over my shoulder, and for the first time in weeks, I saw him smile. Looks like Monica just made our decision for us, he said. The conference room felt smaller with FBI agents sitting across from us. Special Agent Victoria Mills had arrived an hour before our scheduled meeting with Rebecca, flashing credentials that made my already fragile composure crumble completely. Her partner, Agent Chen, no relation to Monica, he'd assured us grimly, spread manila folders across the mahogany table like he was dealing cards. Ms. Collins, we need to discuss your role in what we now believe is a multi-state corporate espionage ring, Agent Mills said, her voice professionally neutral but her eyes sharp as surgical steel. Jake's hand found mine under the table, squeezing tight enough to ground me. Sarah's the victim here, not a perpetrator. Mr. Harrison, we understand your personal investment in this case, Agent Chen said, consulting his notes. But the evidence we've uncovered since Monica Chen's arrest suggests this operation was significantly more complex than initially believed. Rebecca leaned forward. What kind of evidence? Agent Mills opened the first folder, revealing what looked like financial records. When we searched Monica Chen's apartment yesterday, we found detailed files on 43 employees across 7 companies spanning the past 6 years. All young women, all in positions with access to sensitive information. My blood turned to ice. 43 women? 43 documented cases. We suspect there are more. Agent Mills pulled out a photograph, a surveillance shot of me leaving the building 3 weeks ago, clearly taken with a telephoto lens. Ms. Collins, we found over 200 photographs of you in Monica's possession. Some dating back to your first week of employment. Jake's grip on my hand tightened painfully. She was stalking Sarah for 8 months? Longer than that. We found evidence that Monica researched Sarah extensively before she was even hired. Agent Chen pulled out another document. Monica accessed Sarah's college transcripts, employment history, even her medical records through fraudulent means. The violation felt deeper than anything she'd done at work. My medical records? How? Identity theft. Monica used stolen personal information to impersonate you with healthcare providers, insurance companies, and background check services. Agent Mills's expression was grim. She knew about your relationship with Mr. Harrison before you did. The words hit me like a physical blow. That's impossible. Monica had been monitoring Jake Harrison's patterns for months before she targeted you. Security camera footage, credit card records, even his personal vehicle's GPS data that she obtained illegally. Agent Chen spread out a timeline chart covered in dates and locations. She identified you as someone he showed interest in and engineered her entire harassment campaign around destroying that relationship. Jake stood up abruptly, his face pale with fury. You're telling me she orchestrated everything? The job placement in her department, the systematic harassment, even Sarah's pregnancy played into her timeline, Agent Mills confirmed quietly. We found draft documents dated 2 months ago outlining how she planned to use a pregnancy announcement to trigger corporate ethics investigations. I felt like I was going to be sick. She knew I was pregnant before I knew. Monica had access to your medical insurance claims in real time. She saw the appointment bookings with Dr. Martinez, the prescription vitamin coverage, even the early ultrasound authorization. Agent Chen's voice was carefully controlled. Ms. Collins, Monica Chen has been planning your professional destruction since the day you were hired. Rebecca was taking frantic notes. Agent Mills, what does this mean for the state investigation into Sarah? All charges against Ms. Collins are being dropped immediately. The evidence clearly shows she was the target of an elaborate frame-up. Agent Mills closed her folder. However, we need Sarah's cooperation as a key witness in what's now a federal case. What kind of cooperation? Jake asked warily. Agent Chen pulled out a thick packet of papers. Monica Chen is refusing to cooperate, and her brother David has fled the country. We need Sarah to testify about the harassment patterns, the surveillance, and the systematic campaign of intimidation. My hands were shaking as the full scope of Monica's obsession became clear. This wasn't workplace bullying or even corporate espionage. It was a calculated psychological assault that had lasted nearly a year. How many other women are willing to testify? I asked quietly. Agent Mills exchanged glances with her partner. So far? Just 3. The others are too frightened of professional retaliation. The weight of responsibility settled on my shoulders. 43 women's careers destroyed, and I might be the only one brave enough to fight back. What happens if I say yes? The federal courthouse in downtown Seattle felt impossibly grand as I walked up the marble steps at 8:47 a.m. on a crisp October morning. At 16 weeks pregnant, I was finally showing enough that my Navy maternity blazer, purchased specifically for this testimony, actually served a purpose beyond making me feel professional. Jake squeezed my hand as we approached the security checkpoint. You ready for this? As ready as I'll ever be. I touched my small bump instinctively. Besides, someone needs to speak for all those other women. Agent Mills met us in the hallway outside courtroom 7B, her expression more relaxed than I'd seen in the 3 months since Monica's arrest. Sarah, I have news. This morning, Monica Chen's attorney contacted the prosecutor. She wants to make a deal. My heart hammered. What kind of deal? Full confession to all charges, corporate espionage, identity theft, cyberstalking, fraud, in exchange for a recommendation of 12 years instead of 25. Agent Mills smiled grimly. Your testimony yesterday in the preliminary hearing broke her. When you described finding those vitamins missing, even her own lawyer looked disgusted. Rebecca appeared beside us, practically glowing with satisfaction. It gets better. David Chen was arrested in Singapore 2 hours ago. The FBI found evidence of similar schemes involving 37 companies across 4 countries. This case is going to destroy their entire operation. Through the courtroom's glass doors, I could see Monica sitting at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, her perfectly styled hair now limp and unwashed. She looked smaller somehow, diminished without her red manicured nails and designer suits. Sarah Collins? A court clerk approached with a clipboard. Judge Morrison is ready for your victim impact statement. This was it, my chance to tell the world exactly what Monica Chen had done to me, to us, to our baby. The courtroom was packed with reporters, FBI agents, and representatives from all 7 companies Monica had infiltrated. As I walked to the witness stand, I caught sight of 3 other women in the gallery, Amy Chen, Jennifer Walsh, and Rebecca Torres, the former employees who had finally found the courage to come forward. Ms. Collins, Judge Morrison said kindly, please tell the court how the defendant's actions affected you personally. I looked directly at Monica as I began speaking. Your Honor, Monica Chen didn't just steal my prenatal vitamins or fabricate evidence against me. She stole 8 months of my life. She turned my dream job into a nightmare, my pregnancy into a source of terror, and my relationship into something we had to hide out of fear. Monica's lawyer whispered something urgent in her ear, but she stared straight ahead, refusing to meet my eyes. She monitored my every keystroke, photographed me without consent, and accessed my medical records to predict when I'd be most vulnerable. My voice grew stronger with each word. But what she didn't count on was that I had someone who believed in me. Someone who was willing to fight for our family. Jake smiled at me from the gallery, his hand resting on his heart. Monica Chen thought she could destroy my career to benefit her brother's company. Instead, she exposed a criminal enterprise that hurt dozens of women. I finally looked away from Monica to address the judge directly. Your Honor, I'm asking for the maximum sentence not just for me, but for every woman who was too afraid to speak up. Judge Morrison nodded solemnly. Thank you, Ms. Collins. You may step down. As I walked back to my seat, Monica finally looked at me. For just a moment, I saw something that might have been regret flicker across her face. 2 hours later, Judge Morrison sentenced Monica Chen to 15 years in federal prison. David Chen would face similar charges in Singapore. That evening, Jake and I sat in his office, our office now, since my promotion to Director of Executive Operations had been announced that morning, watching the sunset paint Seattle skyline in shades of gold and pink. So, Jake said, his hand resting on my growing bump, ready to tell everyone the rest of our news? Tomorrow, we'd announce our engagement to the company. Next month, we'd reveal the baby's gender, a girl, as of last week's ultrasound. In March, we'd welcome our daughter into a world where her mother had stood up to a bully and won. More than ready, I said, leaning into his embrace. Besides, I think we've kept enough secrets for one lifetime. Monica Chen had tried to steal my vitamins, my job, and my future. Instead, she'd given me something far more valuable, the courage to fight for what was mine.